Welcome to the U.S. latest news channel. Watch the video to the end to find out the current and breaking news about the Russian war in Ukraine. Russian military units launched an attack on two small districts of the Dnipropetrovsk settlement, Nikopol and Sinelnikov. The statement on all these issues was made by the head of the Dnipropetrovsk Regional Military Administration, Valentin Reznichenko, from official publications. Valentin Reznichenko, head of the Dnipropetrovsk Regional Military Administration, said the Nikopol settlement was hit 5 times with Grad multiple launch rocket systems, MLRS, and heavy artillery. The city of Nikopol is the region that has suffered the most. More than 30 Russian shells were fired there. People remained without damage, Reznichenko added. October. In Nikopol, one-story houses, residential areas, cafe, and hotel structures suffered great damage. More than 1,000 dwellings were left without electricity. Engineers in various fields handle maintenance operations from now on. In the Marinets region and the settlement of Chervono-Rivorivka, however, there were no casualties. Our compatriots in the settlement of Sinelnikov in the Veliko-Mikhailivka region were not harmed. Reznichenko said, the damage situation has not been determined yet. He finished his remarks. The other sides of the Dnipropetrovsk settlement also experienced a quiet night as of last night. Russia has lost almost 59,610 soldiers in Ukraine, which are already present. The statement on the subject regarding all these narratives was made by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine through its official social media accounts. October 1st, 2022, February 24th, 2022, the total number of Russian military units among the war casualties, in addition, 2,354 tanks, 4,949 armored combat vehicles, 1,397 air systems, 336 multiple launch missiles were also included. There were also air defense systems, 176 anti-aircraft combat structures, 264 aircraft, 226 helicopters, 3,786 motorized vehicles and supply tanks, 15 warships/boats, 1,009 UAVs, plus 131 special military equipment units. In total, 246 cruise missiles belonging to the Russian army were destroyed. Over the past 24 hours, Russian military units have faced the greatest casualties on the sides of Kramatorsk and in the vicinity of Bakhmut. Saturday, October 1st, Russian military troops launched a missile attack on the settlement of Odessa in the early morning. The details of the issue, the Southern Operational Command of Ukraine conveyed in a statement through social media accounts. 2 missiles, most likely Iskander, hit an industrial infrastructure facility, causing extensive damage to an electrical substation and several buildings on those sides, the text said. A fire broke out in a private garage. The fire was brought under control in a short time. There were no casualties, the command added. The Russia-Ukraine crisis, which has been decried as one of the hottest struggles of recent years, continues to bring different elements together as well as global threats. As the Russian military forces continued to advance into many regions of Ukraine over time, it became known that about 4 regions of Ukraine have now been annexed. Elections were held in 4 regions captured by Russia, and it was decided that the regions would join Russia. While this situation threatened many countries globally, it was Ukraine that suffered the most significant damage. Currently, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has begun to take measures against the policy that Russia has imposed on them. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, arguing that the decisions taken by Russia also threaten Western countries, stated that they urgently need to join NATO. Zelensky, who recently appeared in front of the cameras and stated that they are ready for an accelerated application, stated that if it is accepted, they will be stronger and the occupation movements will completely end. Now millions of people are beginning to wonder how Ukraine's application to NATO will turn out. With the decision taken by Russian President Vladimir Putin, attacks have started to be organized in Ukraine in recent months, and about 15% of the country has been annexed. Desperate at this point, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky applied for accelerated accession to NATO in order for his besieged country to return to the old days. Zelensky, who stated that these interventions by Russia will have global implications, stated that Ukraine should take part in the ranks of NATO as soon as possible. But Vladimir Putin, on the other hand, stated that millions of people have the will in the annexed territories in Ukraine, noting that the relevant areas belong to them. At this point, it was argued that the relevant regions that joined the territory of Russia with the ceremony were taken by an election decision of 99%. At this point, after the completion of the referendums, Zelensky's application to NATO also began. But according to the latest situation, the expected interest in this application by Western countries has also been shown, and no clarity has yet been provided in the recruitment process to NATO. Now millions of people have begun to look forward to whether Ukraine will join the ranks of NATO. Ukraine, which has continued to be almost occupied by Russia in recent days, continues to take different steps now. In particular, Volodymyr Zelensky, who argued that the annexed territories belong to them, also signed the final signatures for an accelerated application, making a decision that shocked everyone. At this point, he stated that Ukraine is de facto part of the NATO alliance, but now this process must be carried out in accordance with the law and the application must be approved urgently. But now neither America nor Western countries are interested in the application made by Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who made statements about the accelerated application to NATO, said, "Today, as Ukraine, we are preparing to present our documents to the jury. We want to be a part of NATO within the law. We will show the whole world by proving that the repressions carried out by Russia and the annexed territories are wrong. Now we are starting to take decisive steps by signing the text of the accelerated application for Ukraine to become part of NATO," he used his statements. As a result of the annexation of the regions by Volodymyr Zelensky, a quick application to NATO was made, while Russian President Vladimir Putin made statements at a ceremony celebrating the acquisition of the regions. Vladimir Putin, whose words were interrupted by constant applause, stated that the Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia regions are now theirs. He said that referendums were held in the relevant regions before the annexation was implemented, and millions of people voted of their free will. Proudly making a statement in front of thousands of people, Vladimir Putin said, "Referendums were held in the relevant regions, and we all know the results very well for the time being. The people of the region made their choice. This is the case under UN Charter 1. It is an inalienable right that is also accepted within the article," he used his statements. Later, turning to Western countries, Vladimir Putin said that many countries put pressure on them and they themselves got a right. There are countries that are looking for new opportunities to weaken or destroy Russia. We are aware of this and we will never back down from the situations we deserve. After the USSR collapsed, Western countries decided that they could keep the world under their rule forever. But this is a very wrong thought. Russia has its own personal rights, and we will do everything in our power to protect them. We have mobilized all our military and civilian equipment, he made his statements. One of the most talked about issues after the occupation of 4 regions of Ukraine by Russia was the rapid application process to NATO by Volodymyr Zelensky. The relevant application has now managed to mobilize many countries, while a statement on the agenda items was also made by Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to Volodymyr Zelensky. Podolyak, during his speech, Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that an application had been submitted to NATO, while expressing that global law was on their side. Speaking in front of the cameras, consultant Podolyak said, "Referendums have no legal value and no basis. Just as we do not accept the relevant decisions, many of the countries of the world do not accept them. When looking at international law, it seems that the regions are still connected to the territory of Ukraine and will remain so. It is also worth noting that Ukraine is ready to do anything to be able to retake the relevant territories," he used his statements. Continuing his remarks about the referendum that led to the annexation of the regions, advisor Podolyak said, "The relevant referendums are seen as an election in which very few people participated and fake votes were used. People going to vote, rifles held to their faces, vote, they went on his orders and cast their votes. This situation is never acceptable. Ukraine will definitely manage to regain the lost territories with the steps to be taken." In recent days, new developments have been emerging in the name of annexations, and it has also been seen that Volodymyr Zelensky has taken different steps other than the NATO application. An official quite close to the state at this point said that a very clear answer to the annexations will be given by Volodymyr Zelensky recently, and the president invited the defense and security chiefs to take fundamental decisions on Friday. At this point, it is also known that if Ukraine becomes a NATO member, the alliance will have to fight against Russia. For this reason, many officials believe that the issue was personally studied by Volodymyr Zelensky, and this possibility was also taken into consideration. However, very different opinions continue to be put forward between groups on social media. December. At this point, some people commenting on their social media accounts argue that Ukraine should definitely be admitted to NATO and that the regions belong to Ukraine, while others say that the NATO alliance with Russia should definitely not face off. In addition, many famous personalities continue to share their own thoughts about the Ukrainian, Russian tension and lead communities. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to be informed of the developments at the speed of light.